We tend to think we're smarter than our ancestors. Obviously, right? We have technology, medicine, science. We know things people 200 years ago couldn't even imagine. But here's the question I keep coming back to. Are we actually smarter? Or do we just have access to smarter tools? I remember back in the early 2000s, before every kid had a phone, I could memorize my friends' home numbers without much effort. We all could. It was just normal. Now I can barely tell you my own mother's number without checking my contacts. And the thing that gets me isn't that I've forgotten the numbers. It's that I can't seem to memorize new ones anymore either. Someone tells me their number and it doesn't stick. I have to ask again and again until it finally lands. Maybe part of that is getting older, but I don't think that's the whole story. Here's what's actually happening. Our brains adapt to the demands placed on them, and this is called neuroplasticity. A great example is London taxi drivers. London has some of the most complicated road networks in the world. It's a genuine maze. Researchers who scanned taxi drivers' brains found that their hippocampus, the region responsible for spatial memory and navigation, was significantly larger than in the average person. Not because they were born that way, because their job demanded it. Their brains physically changed in response to what was required of them. That principle works in both directions. The brain builds what it uses, and it quietly lets go of what it doesn't. Our ancestors had no choice but to use their brains constantly. They walked around 15 kilometers a day. They had to learn which plants were safe to eat and which would kill them. Not from a book, not from Google, just from careful observation and memory, passed down through generations. In ancient Greece, it was completely normal to memorize long poems and entire works of literature. Not because they were showing off, because that was how knowledge was stored and shared. There was no other way. Now think about what we actually have to memorize today. Honestly, almost nothing. Any fact you need is a Google search away. Any question you have, ChatGPT will answer in seconds, more thoroughly and more clearly than most of us could after days of thinking. We have outsourced our memory to our phones, our reasoning to search engines, and now our thinking itself to AI. This is called cognitive offloading. And on its own, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Using tools to extend what we can do is part of what makes us human. The problem is, what happens when the tools do so much that the underlying capacity starts to atrophy? Like a muscle you stop using. It doesn't disappear overnight, it just quietly gets weaker. I noticed this in myself most clearly when I tried to solve a problem recently without reaching for my phone first. Just sitting with the question and actually thinking it through. It felt uncomfortable in a way it didn't used to. Like I had lost the patience for it. And I don't think I'm alone in that. What worries me isn't that we have powerful tools. It's that we're losing the ability to function without them. And the trend isn't slowing down, it's actually accelerating. Every year the tools get more capable and we get more dependent. And nobody is really talking about what that costs us quietly, underneath all the convenience. There is a specific feeling you get when you solve something yourself. Not just relief, something deeper than that. A quiet sense of, I did that. It's different from the feeling you get when Google gives you the answer. One of them builds something inside you. The other one just closes the tab. Psychologists call this self-efficacy, your belief in your own ability to handle challenges. And it doesn't come from being told you're capable. It doesn't come from reading about capability. It only comes from actually doing hard things and coming out the other side. Every time you struggle through a problem and solve it yourself, you deposit something into that internal account. Every time you outsource it, you don't. The problem with convenience is that it feels like a win in the moment. You got the answer, problem solved. But it quietly skips that part where you would have built something. And over time, without noticing, that internal account starts running low. Here's something worth thinking about. A big part of your identity, who you believe yourself to be, is built from evidence. Your brain is constantly collecting data about what kind of person you are. And it builds that picture largely from what you do, not what you think or intend. Every time you work through something difficult, a problem, a skill, a challenge, your brain files that as evidence. I'm someone who figures things out. I'm someone who can handle difficulty. I'm capable. And that evidence accumulates into a self-image, into an identity. But when you consistently outsource the hard parts, when every difficult question goes straight to AI, every navigation decision goes to GPS, every uncomfortable uncertainty gets resolved by a search, you stop generating that evidence. And slowly, without realizing it, your self-image starts to shift. Not dramatically, just quietly. You start to feel like someone who needs help to function. Someone who can't quite trust their own thinking. Someone who reaches for a tool before even attempting the problem themselves. That shift in identity is subtle, but it has real consequences. Because how you see yourself shapes what you attempt, and what you attempt shapes who you become. One of the most well-established findings in psychology is that humans have a deep need for competence, the feeling of being effective in the world. It's not just a nice bonus, it's a fundamental psychological need, as basic as connection or autonomy. When it's met, people feel energized, motivated, and grounded. When it's not, when people feel ineffective, dependent, or incapable, it shows up as anxiety, low mood, and a kind of vague dissatisfaction that's hard to name. Modern convenience is doing something interesting to this need. On the surface, it's making everything easier, but underneath, it's quietly eroding the moments where we get to feel genuinely competent, the moments where we struggled and figured it out, where we remembered something important without help, where we solved a problem with our own thinking. Those moments matter more than we realize, not just for productivity or intelligence, but for how we feel about ourselves on a basic level. Remove enough of them, and something starts to feel hollow. Life gets easier, but somehow less satisfying. And a lot of people feel this without being able to articulate why. There's a reason the things people find most meaningful in life are almost never the easy things. The relationship that took work, the skill that took years, the recovery that took everything. Meaning seems to attach itself to struggle in a way it never attaches to convenience. The French philosopher Albert Camus wrote about the myth of Sisyphus, the man condemned to push a boulder up a hill forever, only to watch it roll back down each time. Camus argued that Sisyphus was actually happy, not despite the struggle, because of it. Because the struggle was his. It was something he owned completely. The struggle isn't the unfortunate part of the story. The struggle is the story. And I think that's what we risk losing most quietly as convenience increases. Not just memory or problem solving ability, but the raw material of a meaningful life. The hard things that shape us into someone worth being. I think about this through my own life. I've had chronic neck pain since I was 13. If you're someone who is interested in my story, please watch the video above. So anyways, for years, I waited for someone to fix it. Doctors, specialists, chiropractors, physiotherapists, every treatment I could find, but nobody could. So eventually, I had no choice but to figure it out by myself. I read papers, I learned anatomy, I understood pain science. I did the hard cognitive work that no tool could do for me. That process made me a physiotherapist. It gave me the ability to help other people going through the same thing. It gave me something I couldn't have bought or searched for or asked an AI to hand me. If someone had solved it for me at 13, cleanly, conveniently, instantly, I would have been grateful, but I would have lost everything that came from struggling through it. That's what convenience can't give you. Not the answer, the person you become by finding it yourself.